Welcome to Letters to Louie with Abbey Algiers. Welcome back, Abbey.
Hi, Sally.
It's nice to have you here on this balmy day.
Yes, thank you.
You and I have been corresponding, and you found a series of letters to your father, Dr. James Algiers' good lifelong friend, Louie Fry. And the series of letters starts with him writing to Louie and then ends then with actually his children corresponding with your father.
Correct.
So let's go ahead and read that, and
Okay.
we'll talk about it when you're done.
Great, thanks. August 17th, 2014 at 9:21, my dad wrote, "Hey Louie, it's more difficult to sit down and write, but this is just to say hello on a cool summer Sunday morning. Today we celebrate our 63rd wedding anniversary, a great privilege and a very nice ride for all these years. Looking back, many things might have been changed, but who knows in the end if it would have been better? I doubt it. It seems that water does seek its own level, and we only rise as far as our native intelligence and background allows. Having come from southeastern Wisconsin and never strained for any appreciable time, we should be and really are satisfied with the balance of blessings and forfeiture of human frailties. Next week is filled with some apprehension. Doro is set to have a post-cataract procedure. The past few weeks have been difficult with reduced vision and apprehension. Hope for the best. We'll write soon after tomorrow's meeting of the County Board of Health. Also have started to nag City Hall over the real change of status here in Hartford. Jim." Later that morning, a message came through from Louie Fry. "Dear Dr. Algiers, this is Mary writing. I regret to inform you in the way my father would have stated it, the firm of Patty and Louie Fry has been completely dissolved. Dad passed away very peacefully this morning. Kathy and I were by his side, and he opened his eyes as if to make sure that it was okay. He had been sleeping 24 hours pretty much nonstop before this, and while he had trouble breathing, he was never in pain. He asked that I let you know. While he was still able to read your emails, they were the one thing that helped him get through his days. If his computer was down, he'd call me and ask me to please come and fix it so he could check to see if there was an email from you. We're not planning a service. He didn't want one. He would sadly add, there is no one left to come. All we can do now is celebrate the amazing man he was and enjoy the memories. My best to you and your family, Mary and Kathy Fry." My dad responded, "Mary, Kathy, I am so sorry to learn of my friend's death. Louie was a special friend for nearly 75 years, and I so remember many episodes of friendship, from riding to the football field on the back of a flatbed truck with Louie and his size 10 shoes, the leather helmet and wire rim glasses, our friend Dale Melius likewise garmented, and I at 98 pounds with myopia. No true athlete in the bunch. Then, after realization, Louie became the student, the debater, the politician with poor tolerance for Slinger beer, purchased from the rear of Ike's Tavern at the age of 16. Never caught it. I always get sick after swigging beer. But my friend died, and I felt so sorry last night. I will miss him and his short replies to my nonsensical writing. Ladies, he was special. I am so sorry for your losses these past 2 years. May he rest in peace. My friend will be missed, but he will inspire me to think good thoughts on many varied subjects. May he and your mother be reunited in the great beyond. Dr. Jim Algiers." Later, my dad shared the news with another high school classmate. "Dear Charles, if you haven't heard, Louie Fry died on August 17th from congestive heart failure. His daughter Mary wrote and informed me. I had written to Louie for many years, and he more or less was my stimulus to write and keep the brain functioning. Using the letters to Louie, I would introduce memories from the past, recent societal thoughts, and just plain talking sessions on local TV. Called the program Letters to Louie. Now no more Louie. I felt very close to him for the past 4 or more years, and he was a message at the end of the day on the electrons of the email. I only spoke to him once or twice a year, but wrote every 2 weeks for a number of years. As his health failed, he looked forward to hearing of the project and receiving letters. From the first days of freshman year, I was always fond of Louie. From riding down to West Park on the back of a flatbed truck from the Central Chevrolet garage, with Louie seated between Dale Melius and myself. In my mind's eye, I can still envision him, small, thin, nearsighted, wearing wire-rimmed glasses, a helmet of leather, too large, and shoes, mind you, size 10 on feet of 7s. He and Melius lasted about 2 days, and when they nearly fell from the flatbed, Hal Beatty thought best of the liability investment without a return. He suggested they become co-managers. They turned in their uniforms and spent the time after school at Casey's Central Drug. Later, after graduation, I believe he became Jack Schnorberg's friend until Jack died. One night, a few years later, on my first date with Dorothy, Louie took us home from the Knotty Pine. At that time, there was no taxi, and I had no taxi money. His kind ride home was instrumental in our courtship. Strange, but Louie died on the 63rd anniversary of our marriage. And now you know the rest of the story. Louie has 2 daughters, Mary and Kathy, and since the death of his wife a year or so past, in his loss, they supported him. Their loss of both parents in 18 months or so will be difficult. I thought you ought to know. I really feel the loss. He was my friend. Jim. Charles replied, Dear Jim, your report of Louie's passing is sad news indeed, yet not entirely unexpected. From what you say, I believe you were of great help to him in these last years with regular emails and calls. He did love to reminisce and, with a perspective of time, bringing both insight and humor to the people and happenings of our youth. You may be unaware that Louie and I were roommates at Madison for the first 3+ years of our UW tenure. I slept in the upper bunk, where I could avoid the light of his study lamp and the conversations he at times had with others in the house following drinking sessions at some bar. 3.2 beers were to be had, as I recall. But how I enjoyed his quick humor and conversation and his never-failing barbs directed at various professors and lecturers. At first, between 1944 and 1945, we both ate a meal daily at Mrs. Atkins' rooming house a few blocks away, a facility to which Troller, who lived there, had directed us. I gave up on that in a matter of months, too starchy, too cost-ineffective, and went to the student union cafeteria for a better deal. But Louie continued, maybe even into a second year. After Louie got through the 3 years of pre-law, he lived elsewhere, in that same house, I think, because for some time thereafter, my roommate was an older medical student who spent the whole night studying, but did not bring in any drinking buddies to wake me up and play tricks on me. As time went on, Louie spent more and more time at those beer places and restaurants in the evening and sampled all available exotic cigarettes, apparently sleeping less and less. A few years later, after we had both left Madison, he came down with TB. Well, I can't report much on after that, though we never lost touch, and over many years after I left Wisconsin, we would exchange letters from time to time. I visited Louie and Patty in St. Paul when I was in Iowa in the 70s, but our contact was mostly by mail. He would report on every person we had jointly known at the UW and seemed to have knowledge of most of their doings over all those years. Well, our friend has departed for another sphere. You will surely miss him, and so will I, even if my contact had shrunk to a holiday greeting and perhaps an occasional email. Life goes on, but it will not be the same for those who remember him. Again, thanks for staying in touch. Sometimes the news we convey is not so pleasant, but it's part of this interval between birth and death, which, if Santana was correct, should surely be enjoyed. Until next time, always the best, Charles. Later, my dad shared those emails with Mary and Kathy. Mary and Kathy, if the email is still functioning, you might be interested in this letter from Charles Reed. Dr. Jim. Dear Dr. Jim, I am still checking Dad's Gmail. I most likely will for a while. I passed on your kind words and Charlie's email to Kathy as well. We love hearing those kinds of stories, and we thank you both for sharing. It means a lot to us. Is there any way that there were recordings of your program letters to Louie? I'd love to hear it. Thank you once again, and take care. Mary. Mary, could you send your email address? I'll try to get some recordings of the letters to Louie and send them on. No action for the past 3 months, but the fall will bring some new messages to our audience, if it still exists. Best to you and Kate, Jim A.
Well, we're near the anniversary of all that.
Yeah.
And so for you to come upon this is just perfect timing in my mind. And on my way here today to have this with you, I was thinking of relationships that people have in their lives, and I wonder if the younger generation is even in that kind of thought process, or is this something as we age?
Right, that's a good question.
You know?
Right.
I saw some people earlier today that I knew when they were teenagers, my daughter's age, and the girls that were with her, the young women that were with her, the women that were there were people that I had recognized from my daughter's class. So it kind of got the ball rolling and thinking about that, and in conjunction with this friendship and your
Right.
parents' many years of marriage.
Right, and you never forget, the times with old friends growing up. You never forget those times, as is evidenced by that email from Charles when he recalled all of those things.
And making the effort, and your dad making the effort to reach out to him, whether he would get anything back or not, and sometimes he would. I just think that's a great continuation of him sharing his memories and,
Right, right. And bringing up stories like this just helps, I think, like Louie's daughters, just recognizing their father again, and recognizing people who have passed and just talking about them, I think, is important
I agree.
too.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And to our viewers, as always, thank you for watching.